In some ways, we could say that all of our human confusion and suffering, corresponding suffering that can come along with that, stems from this one innocent misunderstanding, misperception that there's two things or many things. And the conventional idea, viewpoint is that this multiplicity, these many things, or these two things are having an impact on each other. So something is happening to me, for example, being the most fundamental kind of view that we have. Life is happening to me. Events are happening to me. And one way to sort of see that fundamental assumption that most humans just carry around with us, is the sense of there being an inside and an outside. You even hear, even within spiritual teachings, the invitation to go inside, right? And if you just reflect on that for a moment, go inside where exactly? Because that injunction implies that there's something not inside, right? That there's something outside of us. And right there, we have the split, the seeming split, inside and outside. Well, let's just explore to see if that can actually be found. Can we find an inside and an outside? What does the Bible say? The kingdom of heaven is within you. Again, inside, as opposed to where? Well, feel whatever, if someone were to say, if I were to say, go inside yourself right now and explore blah, 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 where would you go? Where is this inside? Would you go inside what you think of and perceive as the body? Would you go inside of what you imagine is your consciousness, your psyche? What does that mean, go inside? And if you were to go outside, what would that mean? You see. There is no inside and outside. A lot of other kind of views sort of rest on this belief in the dichotomy, inside, outside, subject, object, cause and effect being primary among those assumptions, right? Something's happening outside of me that's causing something to happen inside of me, right? Some event is occurring that's causing me to have a certain kind of experience. Again, there's this sense of self and other, inside and outside, subject and object. One thing causing the other. But let's investigate the only thing we can investigate, which is what's showing up. Let's not presume that we're investigating something inside or outside. We're just investigating what's appearing, what's here, what seems to be here. And investigating it by sensing it, by feeling the presence of whatever's showing up. Right? Sounds, sights, tactile sensations, thoughts, feelings, all these different designations we have for phenomena that we say are appearing, are showing up. Doesn't matter what it is that's showing up, just feel it. Feel the presence of it. You are feeling the presence of it. So just notice that you're feeling the presence of what's here, always. And then we're, of course, extrapolating. Consciousness is extrapolating a whole sort of downstream set of implications and interpretations of what's upstream, we could say, what's here, what's showing up right now, immediately. But just feeling the presence of what's here and noticing how you don't actually find an inside and an outside, do you? I mean, you're listening to me and sounds are being heard, something's being communicated, we could say. Information is being transmitted of some kind. I mean, those are all, hold those very lightly, those descriptions. But something's being encountered, right? And is it outside of you? Is there an outside of you? Is there anything outside of you? We don't actually feel an inside and an outside. Notice that. We feel something, we feel presence, we feel experiencing. We don't feel division between anything we might call an inside and an outside. Are the sounds that you're hearing outside of you? Are they inside of you? Are they just here without any location? It's like a body of water. We could talk about the body of water as having a depth and then a surface, but it's one body of water, isn't it? There's no actual separation between the depth and the surface of the sea, is there? What we call the surface is the depth. What we call the depth is the surface. It's one thing. And right now, this is just like this. Our experience, what we might call the inside and what we might call the outside of us is one thing, just like a body of water, one thing. No inside and outside. And from this perspective that we're experiencing right now, that we can notice, things are not happening to us. There aren't things and there isn't us. There's just seamlessness. Again, if you return to the body of water and there's a current moving in the water, we could talk about that current somehow pushing some other part of the water as if it's two things, but it's one thing. So there's really not one current pushing against something else. There's not the currents of life and the events of life pushing on you. There's not two things. There's just one seamless whole. That can most definitely look like more than a seamless whole, can look like things pushing against other things, right? One thing causing another thing. But from the standpoint of the seamless nature of this, the boundaryless nature of this, no inside, no outside, and feel that, right? No inside, no outside. I'm not outside of you. I am you. From that perspective, right? There's no cause effect. Or we could say there's one cause, the primal cause, and everything is its effect. That's like saying there's no cause effect. There's not two things. There's not one thing causing another thing. There's this single cause that has no cause, and everything is its expression. We could say is its effect. So no cause, nothing's causing anything else. These ideas are not causing anything to happen inside of you. These words are not causing something. There's no cause effect. There's just what's here, just this shining. That looks like everything that we see and imagine to be here. But it's just one cause. As many of you know, I've been on this journey with my father's aging process, and he looks like he may be coming to the end of his life now. And it's very easy to look at it from the kind of human standpoint, which is one way for us to see and experience life, and tends to be sort of the primary way I think most humans imagine life to be, that this is both life is happening to me, and then this thing called aging and eventual death is happening to me, right? But from the perspective that I'm describing of the seamless whole that is doing all of this, that is giving rise to all of this, giving rise to this instant right now, the only instant that there is, that we could look at what appears as the vulnerable human creature, in this case, my father, and imagining, the overwhelming nature of this event, right? That seems to be, coming. But what is my father? What are each one of us made of? What are we actually made of? We're made of, Joni Mitchell's saying, right? We are stardust. We're made of the cosmos. Every single thing about us is the cosmos. the intelligence of that. We're made of that intelligence. I remember seeing this when I was present at my mother's passing, that from the standpoint of an individual, death is happening too. It's one way to encounter that, and then to actually see the reality of this other reality, we could say, this other way of encountering it, is that in a very, very real sense, absolutely nothing happens at the moment of death. That nothing dies, that there is no death. I mean, right, we see the waves rise up out of the sea. That's the taking of their form, their birth. They rise up, they're born from the sea, and then eventually they have their course, they run their course, and then the waves vanish, right? The waves don't endure. Just like us, as the forms we seem to be. But from the perspective of the sea, nothing has happened. Nothing has changed. The sea remains the sea. My Father and each one of us is made of the sea. We're made of the sea of reality, the sea of existence, the sea of the mystery. That incredible vibrancy, that incredible magic, that unfathomable beauty and intelligence that's giving rise to each instant. I remember hearing many years ago, the teacher Papaji would often say nothing ever happened. And I remember thinking that was a very odd thing to say, nothing ever happened. It seems like everything is happening, right? But from the standpoint of the sea, in a sense, nothing ever happened, in that nothing other than the sea being the sea ever happened. And from that standpoint, because the sea of existence, the sea of reality, God, if you will, never becomes anything other than God. Birth, death, reality remains reality. In that sense, nothing ever happened. And yet, nothing ever happening shows up as all of this stuff, the dance of life, the comings and the goings, and the sorrows and the joys, and the triumphs and the tribulations, and the whole thing, right? The whole thing. But it's all this single cause, causing itself, right? Giving rise to itself, and then disappearing itself back into itself, right? I mean, in a sense, speaking of death, and the moment is dying. We're dying in each instant and being reborn in each instant, aren't we? Literally, you're not the same in a nanosecond, right? That this it's here, this flash moment is just, it's here and then it's gone. It's here and then it's gone. So we're reborn in every instant. The rising of the moment, that's its birth, is also its death, literally. This can't be held on to. Doesn't need to be held on to. It's just doing its thing. It's just doing its mysterious, magical coming and going, arising and passing away in a single movement. I mean, this, it probably doesn't need to be said, but I'll say it just to bring the point home, which is this perspective that I'm always speaking to, of course, is not the only perspective. It's just the other one that we're familiar with, the sense of being an individual in a world, to put it bluntly, is so taken for granted and so assumed to be really the sole perspective for the most part. in this current existence we find ourselves in. But this other perspective just has such a different sense to it, such a different feel to it, such a different set of, it's just completely different. It's just more than 180 degrees different, right? There's no victims from this perspective whatsoever. Which isn't to deny the experience that we can have of feeling crushed by events, right? Being overwhelmed by events. No question about it. That can occur. There's no denying that experience, because we all know it in different ways and different versions of it, but it is not the only way to encounter reality. And just feeling in the simplest way how there's no inside and outside. You feel that? It cuts through that perspective, doesn't it? There's no inside or outside. That's it. I'm not being crushed by the world outside of me. I am the world. There's nothing crushing and no one being crushed from that perspective. Do you see how different it is? Just makes all the difference.